it softens that strong self and allows us to connect with the other more powerfully. And that's one of the reasons that I personally love it. Historically, I have had, a tendency to be, critical. And I have found that that has softened so much, whereas I may start, but then I pause and say, wait, you don't know this person yet. You're making a lot of assumptions. These are not facts. These are your personal assumptions. Why don't you chill out your ego for a little bit, take a step back, breathe a little bit, and connect more actively?
I'm Amy Woodall, and this is The Conscious Habit, a show from the People Forward Network. We're teaching you how to incorporate love and consciousness at work, at home, and the world at large. Well, hey, Conscious Habit listeners. On today's episode, we're kind of doing an interesting amalgamation, if you will, of Des and I having a conversation along with an interview. And we're going to be talking about a pretty sensitive topic, plant-based medicine. And we just want to dig in with a disclaimer and saying we are not telling y'all to run out and buy your mushrooms or, whatever we're going to discuss today, that this really is a personal path. But we want to shine some light on this because this is a path that several people choose for themselves in order to help open up their consciousness in a way that maybe they couldn't, without using some of these assistances. So yeah, I'm excited to dig into this topic today, Des.
I am too. And I love that you led with, Amy, like opening up your consciousness in a way that maybe wasn't available to you. And when I say wasn't available, yes, of course it's available. And there are a lot of different ways that you can get there. And this is just one of many to be able to expand our, thoughts and consciousness.
Yeah, we've had some of these experiences that are not plant-based medicine, right? In our retreats where you're breathing together in some very deep, long sequences that can help elevate and take our consciousness to a whole other level where things are revealed to us that might normally be kind of hidden from our ego as a means of protection. And, meditation and yoga and ceremonies like the cacao and so there are lots of paths through this. I do think that plant-based medicine is probably the most controversial.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd love to share a little bit about our own experiences. Like I can think of, I'm almost like, as you said, all of the different ways, I'm like, check, check, check. And I remember, and I think you know this story, Amy, I told it at one of our retreats, like having a transformational experience in my hammock in my backyard. I mean, so, as you're saying, it doesn't require that we have something that helps facilitate that in the way of plant-based medicine, which I think is a very natural way. And there are additional natural ways to do that. So what's been, if you wouldn't mind sharing, like what's been an experience that you have had that made an impact for you or change or however you would describe that?
Yeah. Well, I think if we're going non-plant-based medicine, if we're going like just different realms of consciousness, and what I mean by this, y'all, is like in our everyday life of just our own basic level of awareness, it is opportunities that allow you to go deeper than that. I'd like to think, Des, with you and I, with our personal practices of our daily meditation practices, even like our workouts, our spiritual beliefs, that we've worked on developing great awareness, but what has allowed me to go deeper, group breath work, I would say, is something that really helps take you out of your mind in particular, because consciousness, I don't think it's not purely of the mind, it's grander than that. It's a bigger source of wisdom than what our minds can hold. And so through prolonged breath work, I really have expanded and, just had new visual experiences, new physical experiences, and definitely some release and healing, that came somatically from the body of letting stuff go.
Yeah. And how did those experiences shift how you do and be in the world as a leader, as a wife, as a friend?
Yeah. Well, it's become a practice I know I can go back to when things feel heavy or overwhelmed. If I feel like I'm chasing my tail, like I'm not clear, then I know I can always recreate that. Maybe not exactly the same because it's really magical and you're doing it with a group of people, but I know I can go back to sequential breathing in order to help that. But I think the bigger thing that these different experiences can have for us is perspective of like, wow, so much of the suffering I experience isn't real. It's suffering of the mind or this made up story. And so it can just help us see, I think, the root of where some of our things come from, where without that deeper level of consciousness, we can dance in justification. And I think it just opens up a new realm of like, oh, I understand it now differently than I did before.
Yeah, I can see a sense of possibility and freedom in releasing those justifications.
Yeah. What about for you? What's been some experiences for you?
You know, you said it earlier, like there is something so transformational and powerful when you are with a group of people. Let's say whether you're in prayer at church, whether you're doing breath work or meditation, having the collective with that intention can really help to facilitate the type of transformation that we're having. And Amy, you are such a gifted facilitator, and I will always have with me the experience that we had in Tulum where, we were a few days into the retreat, and rather than, kind of breathing and meditating with one eye open to check with everyone's how they doing, I was like, I'm just going to allow myself to drop in. And I had what I would call a profound personal transformational experience that caused a breakthrough for me in my life, just the self-awareness, the connection that I had to all of source. And like you said, it caused me to shift perspective through thoughts and beliefs that I have. And I can go back to that and dissolve some of the limited beliefs that I have, to reframe when I have angst about who knows whatever I'm getting angsty about, like stupid shit. And it really has stuck with me. I mean, that was a couple of years ago. And it really did, through that perspective change and just being able to go back to that, help me to have available to myself a different way of looking at things. So I'm forever grateful for your gift in leading all of us in our retreats through those collective practices.
Yeah, what a gift to be able to, I mean, heck, just to lead and then to help bring you back in, right? To anchor in and bring you back to earth. But it was clear without any substances, it was purely just breathing and the right vibration and the right connection and the right amount of you being able to let go to get that connection, that when you have this unity consciousness experience, which is like, oh, wow, I am connected to all things, then man, you can't help but have perspective, because almost all of the suffering we experience is when we're kind of stuck within ourselves and our own problems and our own challenges. And so to be kind of reunited with the divine, that sounds pretty lovely, I will say.
It does. And I think what you'll appreciate about this conversation and the perspective that Ora brings in around how the option to help facilitate to that end or your own experience, there is the possibility of using plant-based medicines to help facilitate that process if it's for you.
And I think that's the thing, is people figuring out, how do you know that it is for you? For me, I have had an experience that was shaman-led. And I think that's important for people to like make the distinction of, this isn't like a, hey, yo, you want to drop some mushrooms with a chug of whiskey? And like, it's not a means of numbing. If it's used as a recreational drug, it is not used in the correct form. It really is a medicine, a plant-based medicine. And to honor the medicine, you have to feel called to it. I feel like you've got to know why you're doing it. There's a clear intention. You have somebody who's helping lead you. All of that's so important if you feel called to explore, the use of the many plant-based medicines that are available to us in the world.
Absolutely. And I think what you just said really speaks to, like, if we were to say, hey, here are the misnomers about plant-based medicine. It's not about going alone. And you're going to hear Ora talk about how she's certified to facilitate this with people. And it's not just that journey, but it's the pre, How do you know it's for you? What is your intention? It's the post in her coaching that she provides that integration. That's such an important part. And then you also said, it's not for everyone, and it is about having a really clear intention and having it be led very deliberately with a professional.
It's hard. Let me tell you, my experience was beautiful and strange and difficult to like wrap my arms around, and yet it unlocked like so much truth. And it was a combination of all sorts of things, and parts of it were scary, and that can happen. And you just, to have the support of the right people around you to help you untangle it is so important to be able to use it, because it's not just about the experience itself. The experience itself is just one part of the puzzle. It is now, what do I do with this wisdom that was unlocked and shared with me, and how do I integrate it and put it into our lives? And I've seen this, Des, I don't know about for you. I have seen people who begin to use the medicine as a crutch, where it's like they think, I need another one and I need another one. I have to do it again. I've got to do it. And maybe that's what you're called to. But I feel like the medicine is a tool, and you are the magic. The medicine is just a tool to help unlock your magic and your wisdom. It is not the thing we constantly have to be seeking for, And I think if we're not doing integration, we might continue to seek the medicine instead of seeking within ourselves.
Yes. Yeah. There's not a place to get. It's within you. If we're going to get a little woo, and it always has been.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes. Okay. Tell us about Ora. She was so great to have on the show.
She was. So Ora Shtull, 20 years of coaching senior leaders in companies like American Express, Pfizer, Meta. She added psychedelic integration coaching into her certifications. And you'll hear, during our interview with her about there is a powerful and largely untapped opportunity in the field of leadership for us to be able to harness this transformational potential of plant-based medicines, and what she's seeing in her practice and how it really can accelerate our personal and professional development. So we're super excited for you to hear our interview with Ora. Greetings, Conscious Habit listeners. This is Des, and Amy and I are so excited to be with you here today. We have with us a colleague, if you will, in leadership development and coaching. Her name is Ora Shtull. Ora, we're so excited to have you on the Conscious Habit podcast. Welcome.
Thank you, Des. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we are too. So I just wanted to jump right in, and if you would just give us a little background and context on your work.
So for 20 plus years, I have been and still am an executive coach. So that means companies hire me to support their senior leaders in some aspect of their leadership. That could be communication, relationship building, influence. And typically these are the big companies that have budgets to support professional development. So examples of my clients, American Express, Pfizer, Walmart, these companies do support leaders. So that's what I've been doing primarily. I'm also certified as a coach supervisor. I went to Oxford Brookes University for that accreditation. More recently, I've added another certification to my list, a little bit more interesting. I am now also a psychedelic integration coach. As you know, there's a huge renaissance going on in the psychedelic and sacred plant medicine world, and coaches are essential.
Okay, and we definitely want to dive into that. So can you tell us more about that work?
So first, let's go back a little and talk a little bit about psychedelics and plant medicines, because there's a lot of misinformation, lack of education, and bias around it. So first, let's put out there that every culture has its plant medicines and has had them for millennia, right? So take the culture that we share. What's one of our most popular plant medicines? Coffee. Can't live without it, right? Popular, powerful. It's so effective that companies are willing to build coffee bars and give it to us for free. It's connected with productivity. It's connected with alertness. Many indigenous communities have used other plants for millennia. They've used it for healing. They've used it ceremonially, ritualistically, spiritually. So many plant medicines have been around for a long time, and these include many of the psychedelics we know. They've gotten a little bit of a bad rap historically, and luckily, the tide is changing. And people are beginning to understand that there are great uses for these sacred plants. So, where are they being used now? In many arenas. We know that they're used in the medical world, particularly in the therapeutic world, for healing things like PTSD and depression. We are hearing a lot about from the tech bros, the Sam Altmans, the Elon Musks, and celebrities like Tony Robbins, another coach, and sports personalities like Mike Tyson, who are talking about their own experience using them and how life-changing or transformative they are. We're undergoing an incredible renaissance in this area. And I couldn't finish the statement without thanking Michael Pollan, who I think it was 2018. He wrote the book, How to Change Your Mind. That became a Netflix series, if anyone has not seen it, How to Change Your Mind, talking about his research and his personal use as well. And that has opened up a lot of acceptance to the benefits of psychedelics and plant medicines. Of course, risk mitigation is needed as well.
Yeah, I would imagine. So, how did you get interested?
Ah, yes. So I don't have a long history of doing anything that's mind altering. Let me put that out there. But a couple years ago, my son came home from a men's retreat and he said, Mom, I tried something and you're going to love it. I go, huh? And he started telling me about his experience with plant medicine. And I said, well, why are you saying I'm going to love it? Like, what do I know about this stuff? And he said, it's aligned with your values. And I'm again like, huh? And he said, it's aligned with your interest in developing self-awareness in your work, helping people move from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. It's connected with empathy and loving kindness. That's why I think that you should try it and see what's in it for you. So I said, okay, let's go to a retreat together. And we did that. And right away, not only did I begin to experience transformative effects on me personally, but immediately I said, wait a second, this is a tool in the healing world right now. But I see opportunities for these plant medicines to be a tool for general betterment, right? For everyday growth, for everyday transformation. Why is it just being used in the medicalized world? If I could use it as a coach, as someone who's in the business and in the passion of personal development, wouldn't that be helpful? So that's how I got into it. Fast forward, I signed up for a 1-year program to become a psychedelic integration coach because I think that's essential to the process of change.
Yeah. Everything that you said, that your son said about it lines up with your values. I'm thinking about your work, Amy's work in conscious habit, the work that I do, and all of those things we know would help unlock that awareness, really unlock some things for them that would allow them to be even more effective, not just in relationships, but in the work that they do. And so, like, being just the three of us, like, oh my God, that's the kind of stuff, the work that we love to do.
Can I jump in for a second? Because I love that word unlock that you used, Desi. That's such a perfect word for what we're talking about. So we know physiologically, okay, we're lumping right now many different plant medicines and psychedelics into one pool. They're all very, very different. But for the sake of this conversation, we can talk specifically about psilocybin mushrooms. We know from the scientific research that they actually promote neuroplasticity. So we're unlocking the grooves, right? As adults, we're kind of stuck in how we think and in what we do. But we know by looking at brain scans of people who have ingested psilocybin mushrooms that there's neuroplasticity, that like kind of new grooves, new pathways, new connections are formed. And what does that do? Exactly what you're talking about. There's an unlocking that goes on. So first, we develop greater self-awareness about who we are. We're able to see things with new insight and new perspective. We get unstuck, right? We get rid of those limiting beliefs. We see what is possible. We write new stories about ourselves. We soften our egos by connecting with others. So that's it. Like the work that psychedelics can complement is the work we all do as coaches. It's just another tool.
Yeah. I love everything you're saying about that. And I'm curious what you have seen in terms of working with someone, like an example of that shift or breakthrough or transformation. If there is something like that that you could share, or maybe it's part of your own story.
Oh yeah, let me share personally. I had a fixed mindset around my own personal atheism. Let me just put that out there. You either believed in a divinity or you did not. And I was in the pool of, sorry, folks, I just don't. My experiences on many different plant medicines have introduced me to what is possible, to new possibility. So I haven't adopted a new fixed mindset about a set belief that is immovable, but I have definitely opened my mind to spirit, to what may be possible in the world. And as a result, I feel that in conversations with other people, I'm much more open to different perspective because I've begun shifting my own.
That's huge. I mean, I can reflect back on 3 conversations today that I've had with various coaching clients where if one person or the other or both had a different degree of openness to like seeking to understand the other, how that would just shift everything in that dynamic. So I love hearing how that does help facilitate that. And it's so closely related to the type of work that Amy and I do on our retreats, our breath work and meditation, the impact that that has on our brains and neuroplasticity. And
Those are all wonderful tools for help our personal growth and our personal development.
I think we need those things that we're willing to say, I'm going to step out of my comfort zone. I'm going to lean into something different, whether it's breath work or meditation, or it's a visualization or an exploration that's deep with, a psychedelic that's going to, help unlock on an even deeper level, but that can allow us to have our ego step aside a little bit. That's just closely protecting and guarding our one single version of the truth so that we can open up our heart and mind to many versions of the truth. And so I'm curious kind of the interlocking of these things and your many years experience doing high level executive leadership. If people, have a kind of fixed mindset, the people that you've worked with that have a fixed mindset, A, how might they know that? And B, what are some of the things that they might be able to look into? So whether it be psychedelic, whether it's other tools that you're there, because I feel like our listeners, while we all like to think that we have growth mindset, I have a feeling there's places where I'm a little fixed and maybe they'll find that they are too.
Yeah. Well, I think that's our job as coaches to help people recognize where they have limiting beliefs or fixed mindset and ask some questions. People may say, like, I don't want to be that kind of person. Well, what is that kind of person? What is your resistance to that kind of person, right? Where does that come from? If you were that kind of person, what would be happening in your life? So as coaches, we have the questions that we can ask when we recognize those very narrow perspectives on many different things. And somehow these plant medicines do indeed kind of soften that strong ego that is so certain. And they allow in possibility, like the what if. What if it wasn't this way? What if the way I am viewing the world, or more specifically, what if the way I'm viewing Amy right now is not expansive enough? Maybe there's more, there's so more that I can see if I open up my mind, if I become more tolerant, if I attempt to connect in a deeper way. So the actual experience, the mind altering experience of something like psilocybin actually does that. It softens that strong self and allows us to connect with the other more powerfully. And that's one of the reasons that I personally love it. Historically, I have had, a tendency to be, critical. And I have found that that has softened so much, whereas I may start, but then I pause and say, wait, you don't know this person yet. You're making a lot of assumptions. These are not facts. These are your personal assumptions. Why don't you chill out your ego for a little bit, take a step back, breathe a little bit, and connect more actively.
Ladies, imagine taking time away to work on you. Meditation, yoga, transformational work, a chance to have grand adventures and build lasting relationships. Desiree Garcia and I founded High Vibe Tribe Retreats to create just that. And if you're curious about joining us on our next retreat, head over to highvibetriberetreat.com, link in the show notes.
That leads me to a question, Ora, about if you or someone has had this transformative experience, does it stick?
First, I just feel compelled to say, because there's going to be some people listening to this, I am not promoting or advocating the use of plant medicine for everyone. So I just want to put that out there. I'm also not promoting any illegal activity. Plant medicines and psychedelics have a very complicated relationship with government regulations. So I just want to put that out there, that I'm not advocating. I've had very positive experiences personally, and I'm talking about my work, but I just want to say that it's not for everyone. All right. So, as a coach, I have a lot of responsibility to make sure that if someone is interested, we have to evaluate fit and readiness. We have to do a lot of intake to make sure that this person is the right person. We work with setting intentions. We work with creating a safe and legal space for their journey. We work on actioning any thoughts or perceptions that come up. We integrate them into life. So I feel compelled, like public service announcement. I am not here to advocate that this is the magic answer for everyone. I am a coach and I use very, very many different modalities to support people. And psychedelics and plant medicine has a special, careful place. Plant medicines are magic potions. There are some people who have a single journey and who feel transformed for life and move forward with the support of a coach or just a very, very strong internal system and move forward and make changes and write new stories in their life. For some people, that's all they need. If you read the stories of particularly people who've experienced 5-MeO DMT, they have one experience and they've discovered something very, very new. Other people are interested in many journeys that begin to thread together over time to support them. But I would say that really one of the most important things in the plant medicine world is having a coach. Like we know that senior leaders, the most successful CEOs and senior leaders always have a coach behind them to support them. We know that our pro athletes have someone to support them. So I think the magic combination is, very safe substance, someone to help you create the mindset that you need to engage with plant medicine and create a safe, facilitated setting for that person, which includes prep, it includes facilitation, and includes that integration. How do you take that crazy experience I just had and make it meaningful? Is it actionable? Do we want to move on this, or is it something we just need to sit with? So it's actually not so much like, should I do it once? Should I do it many times? But what is the responsible process you're engaging in to make it not just some recreational experience out in the woods with a few friends, but something that will truly impact your life and how you interact with others?
I would imagine for leaders, if this was a right path for them, if they chose to say, I'm ready to go beyond what my own conscious mind will allow me to do and invite in a medicine that helps me go deeper and see deeper truths, that there's such a great way for them to integrate that into their workplace with various relationships or healing any toxicity. Because, as the mind grows, I feel like the heart expands too. And so like you mentioned that you were once critical, I would imagine it would, soften maybe some of I'm using air quotes for the audience, like all of the tough problems and the hard challenges. You might see them completely different post psychedelic experience.
Yes. Well, we do know that the tech bros are very busy going to retreats in other countries together. And our hope is, like, you only have to read today's news to know that we need new states of consciousness to benefit our world. We need that. even if you or someone you know is not the right candidate for plant medicine, I would like us to build a world. I'd like to live in a world where people are expanding their consciousness, where they are becoming more sensitive to others. My hope is that with this renaissance and with corporate professionals going to legal environments to engage in plant medicine journeys and sometimes doing it above ground here, not fully legally as well, that it makes a difference, not just on a personal level, but on a communal level, because we need that.
Yeah. I mean, again, all of the things that you've referred to just help us expand our thinking. We do need it. And, as you've said, there are many different ways to arrive there, and this is one. So I was curious about, I think you might have even said, or maybe Amy said, conscious leadership. And that is one thing that we talk with everyone who comes on this podcast is, what is conscious leadership? And I'm curious to ask you that question, given your full wealth of experience and background, and even how this conversation may fit into your definition of what that is.
So let's break that down. Conscious leadership. When I hear the word conscious, I think awake, aware, alert. When I hear the word leadership, I think that we exit from focus on self and we connect or empathize with those around us. So if we put that together, is that as professionals, as leaders, we have to be intentional. We have to be sensitive to others. We have to be both skillful and soulful. And I can personalize that. Early in my career, I was I'm going to skill you up as a coach. I was that, coach, I'm here to maybe optimize, highlight your skills. But as I have grown as a coach and as I have had new experiences, including the ones we're talking about, my work is also focusing the soul. Like, how do we want to show up for others? And I think that word conscious captures it. It's how do we want to show up to benefit individuals? And when we do that, it has a ripple effect on everyone in our environment.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful definition. I love that. Amy, any other questions that you have?
I would love to know if I'm a listener, right? And I am curious to hear from Ora. What are the steps that I could take to ensure that I am aligned as a conscious leader, or that I'm stepping into this conscious leadership? Because I think we are all in agreement that like now is the time for us to really rise above, become the highest, best versions that we can for ourselves, for our businesses, for the world, allow that ripple effect to be there. But what are some of those first initial steps that I might take to help expand that for myself?
I think because you are a listener, you're in very good shape, probably way above average. I think we've lost the art of listening. And listening is not just, zipping your lips and sitting there and shaking your head. I think listening is engaging with someone else. So there's so many ways we can talk while we listen. So we can ask probing questions. Like, I want to understand more. Tell me more. What's behind that? This is new to me. Can you tell me, give me a little more explanation or give me a little bit more data? I'm not fully understanding it. Spending so much more time in that place of inquiry and curiosity, I think helps build bridges. So another way to talk is just letting that person feel heard before you go off and advocate for your own belief or your own something or other. So we can, we use the art of paraphrasing, right? To make people feel heard, of course, to check our clarity, but also to make people feel heard. And once they feel heard, only then can they be open to hearing your perspective or your opinion on something. I think with the strong emotions now, particularly because the political arena is in a state of change, there's a lot of conflict between people. And before advocating for one's own beliefs, I think it's really useful to empathize with how someone else is feeling, their strong feelings, like just simply, wow, you're hot about this. You're really worried. You're concerned, right? Is that it? I'm really feeling your heat about this. Yeah. And only then, if appropriate, saying like, hey, can I add a layer of meaning here? Can I add my perspective here? So I think exactly what you're saying, Amy, is starting by being a listener. It's such a basic skill that many of us need to work on and need to improve so that we do understand the other in conscious leadership, that we do build those bridges and really make life better for all us humans on this gorgeous, precious earth.
Yeah. A daily practice, a daily reminder of like, who do I want to be? How can I be conscious today? With or without any psychedelic intervention, how can I lean into these principles?
Absolutely. All right. Well, Ora, it has been a pleasure having you on. I can't wait for our listeners to share their feedback on their thoughts. What is the best way for folks to get in touch with you?
Oh, just please connect with me on LinkedIn. I am Ora, O-R-A. My last name is Shtull, S-H-T-U-L-L. My company is Ora Coaching. So it'd be a pleasure. It would be delightful to have you all in my network. I welcome that.
Okay, before we wrap up this episode, here are our 3 takeaways and how we can incorporate them into our lives.
Absolutely. So I loved, Amy, when Ora was talking about how plant-based medicine, and we'll say other modalities, can really help us to soften our strong ego, right? So ego is going to be there. It's always going to be a part of our lives. And being able to soften it, recognize times when it doesn't have to be in the driver's seat, and thinking about then what is available to us. What are the possibilities when we are coming from a place of, and this is your thing, like consciousness. So I love that as one takeaways. What was one of yours?
Well, I think it's a piggyback on that one for sure. I loved her sharing her own experience of like, what did a plant-based journey do for you? And she said it allowed me to experience what if. And I think that requires some softening of the ego, and what if we have to be willing to not know, and the ego loves to know and it needs to know and I got to know. And so I think in softening the ego, moving into a what if to expand just what's true and possibility and not be so damn certain, because certainty can create more roadblocks. Even without plant-based medicine, we can lean in and ask ourselves that more often. What if I saw this differently? What if there was a different version of this? I think there's lots of ways for us to incorporate that.
Yeah, absolutely. When you said that, I was thinking about, so many people that I work with in coaching that like want to work on, I got to be less in control of everything. And what if is a great way of like framing, like, oh, it doesn't have to be like this way for it to be perfect or great or the right way. It's good. The third, what stood out for me was that often I think that we default to what can I do? What actions can I take? And in our conversation with Ora, it really opens up the possibility of just being versus a, human doing, human being, and just the power in that and what that, facilitates.
Yeah. Ooh, wise. We are human beings, not human doings. It's really fun to have this conversation. And Des, it's been so fun to have you on a season of Conscious Habit and to be co-host for the season. And so we're wrapping up our season together, but I just want to say thank you. And thank you from our listeners. I know they've loved having your wisdom and insight on the show. It's been just so fun. And everything we get to do together is always such a damn treat, all of our collaboration. So thank you. Grateful.
Well, you're not shaking me anytime soon. And and as you made me commit, I'll be back.
Yeah, I'll be back. We look
Correct.
forward to that. We look forward to that. Thanks for listening to the Conscious Habit Podcast. If you dug this episode, we'd love it if you would subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. And if you're into this consciousness thing, if you like this conversation and you want to meet more like-minded people, head on over to Facebook and join the Conscious Habit community. Until next time, do the world a favor and go love yourself.